What's up guys, how's it going? Today, I'm going to be showing you how to install a heated steering wheel on your BMW 1 Series, and I'm pretty sure it's basically the same for the 3 Series. So, I know I've already done it on a 128, today I'm doing it on a 135i. So this video, I'm going to change it up a bit, I'm going to make it like an expert mode video that basically, I'm assuming that you know, like basic electrical stuff such as how to crimp wires and wrap cables and things such as that. So it should be hopefully shorter than the last one. Let me see what we've got, what you'll need, and then we'll begin. So starting off the basics, some tools that you need are a wire stripper and a crimper. Gonna need a T20 Torx, a 10mm. You're gonna need Tessa tape or electrical tape. I highly recommend Tessa tape though. You're gonna need a wire cutters, and also a wire crimper for your pins. So I've got this one that has a 1/4, half, and 1mm squared. And then for our final tool, I have it on the floor there, you're going to need a 16mm as well as a torque wrench for our steering wheel. And now for the actual parts that you're going to need. These are all from a 3 Series, since you could actually never get a 1 Series from the factory with a heated steering wheel. So, I will have all part numbers in the description, but you're going to need the bottom steering column trim. You can usually find them on eBay with the button, but I'll also put the button part number there. So you're going to need the trim and the button. You don't need the switch housing, but usually again on eBay, they come with them. You can see I've already actually Tessa tape wrapped this, replacing the factory really sticky and soft and falling apart factory tape. So basically you're going to need the clock spring, which turns this from a 6-pin to a 12-pin. You're of course going to need your steering wheel. I have this one from an E84 X1. You can also get it from a 3 Series. And basically the easy way to tell is if it's heated is if it has this blue connector right here. Then it'll also have the box down there, so it's that blue connector. You can need about 10 feet of 18 gauge wire cut into 2 sections, about 5 feet each. You're also going to need a 5-foot strand of 22 gauge wire, and then also maybe about 5 or 6 inches of a separate length of the 22 gauge. We are going to be tapping the fuse of the cigarette lighter. So what you need is a fuse tap. I'll put it in the description since I don't know the exact size, and then also a link where to buy these. Then you're going to need 2 10-amp fuses. You're also going to need a O-ring connection that we're going to crimp. That's going to be for our negative, for our ground. I'll put the links and part numbers for these as well from FCP Euro. You're going to need some socket terminals, so it's the receiving, the female end of the pins. You're going to need the contacts as well. That's, I believe, the male end of the pin. Going to need this connection right here. This is going to be plugging into our button. There it is. I'll also put it in the description. You're going to need this connection right here, which goes to our 12 pin on the clock spring. So you're going to need this one right here. So that's really it for doing this retrofit. So let's begin. And first thing we're going to do is disconnect the battery. So if you have the coupe or convertible that doesn't actually have a top like bar on the window, you're going to make sure your door is shut, because when you open the door it goes down slightly, and then when you close it goes back up slightly. So you want to make sure your door is closed, because there is actually enough space for you to just kind of push it shut intentionally. So, and then you won't just have a gap in your window. Alright, so if we disconnect the battery, it's onto the trunk floorboard. If you have an LCI model, just make sure that you put a cloth between the lock actuator on the trunk to make sure that you don't close the trunk and lock yourself out. Just going to be a 10mm under there, removing the negative terminal. And then what I like to do to prevent any contact whatsoever is just wrap it in a microfiber cloth so there's no chance. next thing is the airbag. So there's going to be 2 little slits, one on each side of the steering wheel. Basically, you want a flathead screwdriver. I like to use plastic. Slide it up inside here. I'll put a clip on screen now to show you what's actually happening inside. And basically, you're going to go behind the obstacle you're going to feel. You're going to push, and that actually pops out the airbag. I like to not do it all the way until I get both sides, or else it can actually prevent it from coming out. And there we go. So for the airbag, you're just going to disconnect those. I like to go in from the back here. Just like that. Now there's going to be 2 connections, and here's a tab on the left one, and again, I actually like to just press it with the plastic spudger instead of getting my finger in there, and the second one just pulls out like that. Now it's going to be our 16mm main bolt. If you need, you can also put the steering column down and out. And then slide the wheel right off like so. Now we're gonna need to separate the top and bottom trim pieces. Now you can use a trim tool. Honestly, my fingers usually do a fine job. So I just go like this, lift up, and can use the trim pry tool for leverage if I need. There we go, lift up, see the C-clip. Then there's gonna be a plastic tab here, and one on the other side you're going to pull out. That will allow you to then pull the trim down like that. And you can just kind of slide it forward around the position lever. So again, I like to have the steering column all the way out and down. Now there's going to be a small 3-pin connection. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is remove the clock spring. There's a slide lock connector, and then there's just a tabbed connector here. Now there's going to be 4 T20s. And with that, just pull this off. Now, if you are swapping for stocks from your new one, if you got it with them, that's it. But if you want your original stocks, this is when you are going to switch them. So I'm not going to do it, but I'll show you how to do it quick. It's basically just clips that disconnect the clock spring. So there's 1, there's 2 down here, there's 3 there. And that one actually just slides out like that, and then you can swap your clock spring just like so. Then to put your new one in, just clip it down like that. And I'll also let you know that on these BMWs, there is no chance of spinning your clock spring because it can only spin. This button is pressed when the steering wheel is on it, so you're good. Alright, so we're going to begin wiring. Basically, this is the connector we are going to be replacing for the 12-pin, so let's remove it. So you're just going to pull this tab up. And now we're going to push in each one of these tabs, make sure that you know which colors go where. And then these are going to go in the bottom 6 pins of our 12-pin connector. And I'll show you that. So these pins are going to go in the same order to pins 1 through 6. You'll see here. You'll see that 1 is this one here. So it's going to go just like this. So you're going to poke it again to get it through the second lock, and just directly transfer each one. Alright, and here's our last pin going into place. Now I'm going to click them all in and lock down the connector. Alright, so I locked it down on that side. Now we're going to be working on wiring in the button to here, and then having our power and ground cables go over there. Alright, so I'm going to get my small length of wire. It's probably about 6 inches here. This is the 22 gauge. And now we are going to be putting on one of these. I like to twist the wire to get it prepared. Now I'm going to place our terminal in the crimpers all the way up until the insulation. Crimp. Alright, now we're going to put a pin on the other end of this wire. And so this is going to go from the clock spring from here into our button. Alright, so we're actually going to do this exact same thing again now. And then these are going to go from pin 1 and 3 on the button to, I forget which one's there, but do this exact same thing again. Alright, and now with this connector, these are going to go pin side in to pins 1 and 3. Can't lock it down yet though, because we do have our ground. And that we will actually now pin to our long wire here. Alright, now we've got our 5-foot wire pinned up here. And this is going to go into pin 2. With that in, then lock down this connector. Alright, now on each of the 18 gauge wires, we are going to put a female connection on one end. Alright, so pin 1 on our left here, if you're looking at the connector like this, it's going to go to pin 12 on here, just like that. Make sure you hear it click twice. And then our pin 3 goes to pin 10. Alright, and now for our two 18 gauge here, they go into pins 7 and 9. Like that, and then we can lock down this connection and actually reinstall the clock spring and our steering column bottom trim. We can connect the button. So basically now we're moving on to the right side of the car. So I'm going to put all this on, and then we are going to actually wrap and test the tape and get our cables over there. So I'm going to get my clock spring on here, and let's screw it in. So I'm actually going to tape the connector up here with the wires, because the button wire is long enough to actually reach it up here. There we go, and I can put that clip right back there. And you'll see that when this is in place, it can easily reach that, no problem, and gives us a nice little place to mount it, and make sure that none of the wires get in the way of anything. Alright, so now before I continue, we're actually going to be removing all of this trim so we have access to get our wires behind there and secured properly. Then we're also going to be removing the glove box. Then we're also going to be removing a part of the kick panel down there. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is actually wrap this all in test tape. Then we can install the steering wheel and everything, and then move on to the right side of the car. And before we go any further, I would recommend somehow distinguishing these two wires if you are using the same color for each one. So I'll just do it like this for pin 7. I'm just going to strip it right now. Otherwise you could, if you had like a marker or something, go ahead and do that. But for my pin 7, I'm just doing that to distinguish it. Right now, also for wrapping, I'm going to be kind of braiding these cables together just to keep them together even more nicely. Alright, so I've kind of twisted them all together. I'm going to again just use a little bit of test tape to keep them together at the end. Alright, now to just wrap the entire thing. Alright, so now I've got our custom wiring harness wrapped with test tape. We will be peeling it back a bit here in places at the end, but that's all right. I can do that later. Alright, so now I'm going to test tape it once more all the way back there. And that's where it will split from the existing wiring harness, go behind the radio and everything. So let's now work on this. So to remove the radio, we're first going to have to remove our main dashboard trim. You can use a tool for this. Otherwise, I find my fingers work well most of the time. So it just pulls out like this. On the 1 series, it is very common for this to come out with it, but that's alright, and the rest are just these kind of pegs here. So we're going to have to first remove the bottom trim here. And again, you can use a tool, otherwise you can kind of get at it from underneath, like so. And now the climate control panel technically comes out with it. And that has one kind of thing on each side. So then, so the top of this is actually clipped into the panel. So then it comes out like that. Now there's 2 slide lock connections on the back of here, like so. Now for the radio, it's 2 Phillips head screws. Alright, it's going to slide out like this. Then the large connection on the left, I'm going to pull the top off, like so, and pull it out. And then we are going to have the antenna connection and the satellite radio connection, which is the pink one there. So you're going to pull out on the white part, Alright, so the plastic clip thing on the back, if you really didn't want to come out, so we're just kind of resting it there. Now, what we're going to do is actually thread it through here. You can actually see quite a bit through here. I'm actually going to use this kind of tweezers to grab it and pull it through here. And I'm just going to kind of get it as low down in here as possible, like so. Now basically we just run it through the other side. So if you don't have iDrive again, it's going to go under here. If you do have iDrive, it'll be a bit easier. So it kind of needs to go around here, behind this harness. It's going to go behind that thing with the cutout. And now I'm going to thread this through, and then we can reinstall this, and then do the steering wheel and the trim there. So again, I'm just going to put it behind the metal bar that we can kind of see here. And then we can just kind of push it through. And so now it's tucked down there nicely and all ready over there. So let's put this back in. So now I'm just going to have the radio kind of in like this so it's out of the way, but since we will be removing the glove box and since there's a small lip there, we do need to remove that screw and that screw, so I'm just going to make it so we can still move it if necessary. So I'm going to start with our bottom steering column trim, and also to make sure that we have enough length, I'm going to pull the steering column all the way out, and then just move it up and down, to make sure that, one, the wiring is all out of the way, and two, to make sure that it has enough length. And so since it's running across the existing wiring harness, it's going to be out of the way. So I'm going to plug this back in here first, and now all the way out and up. And now we're just going to work on getting this all clipped back in. And the wiring harness does kind of channel specifically on the right side of this here, and that'll allow these big clips to go on. Get it snapped in the back, and there we go. All right, now let's put our new heated steering wheel on. So you're just going to thread your new cable through here. So there's actually a little mark on the bottom in an absence of splines there, so you can only put it on the correct way. I'm going to plug these in. And this we're going to route over here through this clip and through this one, and plug it into the controller right there. All right. Next, we're going to thread in the bolt and tighten it to 42 foot-pounds. This is again the 16mm. So now we can reinstall the airbag. These connections just snap right in. And make sure you're not pinching any wires. And you just push in like that. I do actually like the style of steering wheel. It matches the texture of the airbag and of the dashboard, so I think the client will like it. So now we're going to be removing the glove box. So we're going to start with T20s. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm not sure if we need to do that one. I don't think so. Alright, so the first thing we have to do is actually open the glove box, take out your manual. Now we need to lower it so we can disconnect the airbag that is under here. So what you're going to do is, you'll see a hydraulic thing here. You're going to push it back. That'll unclip it. Now to actually lower the glove box, there's a plastic tab on the left here, sort of up. And there's a rubber stopper. So you're going to push that left out of the way. And there's one on the right. So with both of these out of the way, this can now lower. And we can see our airbag connection here. So same deal as on the steering wheel. Is pop the clip out and pull. Now I can put the glove box back up just without reattaching the hydraulic thing. So it'll be easier to get out of here. Now under here, there's going to be two T20s that we need to remove. Lastly, we're going to have the small rivet here. And now you can lower this panel. One connection right here. Just a 2-pin for that light. Alright, so before the glove box can come out, we also have to remove this panel. And to do so, we're also going to remove this panel. Not strictly necessary, but to make it easier, I'm going to peel back the weather stripping to reveal this edge. What I like to do is literally just get my fingers under here. And there's just 2 clips on this side. Then take it out like that. Now I'm going to remove the vent. So basically it's 2 clips on each side. So what I'm going to do is just pull out on here while pushing up from the bottom. So I just pushed up on the bottom. Then you can kind of slide it forward. 2 T20s. And with that, this can now kind of pull out of the edge here and come out. Right, and you'll see the reason we did that is because there's this whole plastic piece that goes behind that panel. So now there's one kind of hidden T20 right at the bottom of this bracket. Alright, so now we can actually remove the glove box. Basically all you do is pull out, make sure you have your radio out of the way here. And it can be a bit difficult because part of it is kind of clipped onto a metal sort of beam that's behind there. You can actually reach back here also to unclip it with your hand, like that. So there's a few connections we have in here. We have this light, this unplug. We have the trunk lock button. Just unplug. So the trunk lock is the yellow and greenish blue and brown and black. And then the light is the yellow and red and solid brown. You can unclip it from there. And you'll see that now we just need to unclip the wire back here that the airbag wire is on. And that'll just come out like so. And now you have the glove box completely removed, and we have lots of room to work back here. So the first thing we're going to do is pull our homemade harness through. Gonna get it, just make sure it's quite nice and down there. Make sure it's pulled all the way through. So now how I'm gonna do this is actually use a cloth tie to tie this to here. And then from here what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put it behind this wiring harness, which will then allow us to put it behind this bar. So gonna come out right here. So behind the wiring harness, up behind here. And now we can actually run it along the back of this bar. So practically invisible, like that. Now this is what we're going to be using for our ground point. So from here, we're going to attach our power wire to the fuse tap. And then the 2 grounds, we're going to actually pull back some of this Tessa tape and split it in 2. Then the 2 grounds are going to connect to our O-ring end connection there, and that's going to go into the fuse tap. And look at that, I found a Fakra cable, which means that this could potentially be fitted for iDrive easier than mine was even. That is for the USB. And confirming my theory, you can see the tan connection back there, which is actually for the iDrive USB. Alright, so the wire that I had marked, this is pin 7, which is going to be for ground. So we're actually going to be putting it with our small black wire here. Then pin 9 is going to be for the fuse tap. So let's first route the cable a bit farther and then work on how we are going to route those. One at each of the bends here in the metal ports, in the metal section. Make sure to have it pulled all the way through and have all the slack you need. Have it exactly where you need it before you actually tighten and cut these. Alright, I'm going to tighten my zip ties now. And I'm just making sure to have my zip ties on the metal part, not on the cloth, so that it doesn't interfere at all with the glove box clips. Alright, so this is where the wires are going to be split into two different ones now. So I'm going to pull back the tessa tape. I'm going to undo it somewhat to back like up here. Then we are going to be zip tying it to this wiring harness. Alright, so now I'm going to completely separate these two and tie them together like that. And then I'm going to cut off the rest of this black wire. And so what I'm going to do with this is put it around and then into our O-ring connector. So this looks to be about the perfect size, so I'm going to go ahead and strip this and then twist the ends together. And so for all this, you're going to need two 10 amp fuses. You're going to need your mini size fuse tap and your connector. I also have a fuse puller. If you don't have one, you can use a pliers. So the original fuse is going to go closest to the pins, and your new fuse is going to go on the top. Alright, so now I'm going to get this connection. We are going to slide it on. Alright, so now for crimping this, I'm just going to use this tool here. You put it right on the metal part in the middle. And squeeze like that. Now those are in there pretty good. If you don't quite feel comfortable with that or something, you can also use a plier. Alright, but before that, I'm going to go on to doing the fuse tap. So on the E88 series, it's actually going to be fuse 8 for the cigarette lighters. So it's going to be this yellow 20 amp here. And it looks like for this size, I might also have to go for the pliers. Alright, now for fitment, I'm going to test fit the tap, and then I'll actually take it out again for tessa tape. So this looks to be just about the perfect length. So I'm going to strip this, take the tap back out so then we can crimp it. There we go. Alright, I'm just gonna heat shrink these two things now. There we go, and now for this one. Alright, so now you can see that they've kind of closed around the wires and are ready for tessa taping. Alright, so sorry about the background noise there. But, so I can just take the tessa tape that we unwrapped and put it around here. So now we just need a little bit more on the end here. I am going to go all the way up to the end of that connector. Like so. So now actually this one I'm going to run behind here for an even cleaner look. And there is a harness back here that I am actually going to tie it to. Alright, now let's just get this ground connected. So this also is going to go up. I'm going to put it behind the bar. So we can see here it's going to kind of come down on it like this. So this is, looks like a T35 now that we are going to unscrew that with. And this is actually going to kind of screw onto the bolt. It is just big enough. T30. Alright, so now this is actually going to kind of screw onto here because it is just barely the wrong size. And you just want to make sure that the flat end is on the bottom and the kind of bumped end where the metal curls around your wire is on the top there. There we go. Now, you're technically done, so I would take this chance now while there's still plenty of stuff apart to make sure that it actually works. So that's what I'm going to do now. Alright, so I temporarily reconnected the battery just by setting our negative terminal on it. Let's start it up and see if it works. Basically, I'm just going to watch if that light turns on and then see if it heats up after a few minutes. Alright, light turns on like a charm. I'll get back to you in about 5 minutes. And just note that when you still have the glove box out, you will have the airbag light on because you have that airbag disconnected. Alright, so it's only been 2 minutes and I can already feel it. So I'd say this is a success. Now I'm just going to do a quick bit of putting it all back together. There we go. Like so. Alright, with those screws in now, you can seat your radio and screw it in. Alright, now if you'd like, you can put in your trim. There is a bunch of space back here. Video hopefully coming soon. I'm actually installing a GMRS radio completely wire invisible in my 128. So I have iDrive, so I'm doing it differently. But if you don't have iDrive, I think that it would actually work maybe even better right behind here because of how much room there is. Alright, I did also reinstall the hydraulics. You just need to push forward and kind of down a bit. Going to replace the owner's manual now in the glove box. Alright, and to make sure it's still working all together, let's start it up. And there we go. Turn it on. And I'm sure it's still working. Alright, so now we are going to clear airs for this front passenger knee air bag, which is the one that we disconnected, that was disconnected while the battery was plugged in. Alright, now I'm going to cycle my ignition, and we should be good. So, thank you guys for watching this video. Comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the very next one.